Hello, everyone, and welcome to this Health Nexus webinar. We're really excited to be presenting two experts today to talk about animal-assisted services. And before we start, we want to acknowledge all of the Indigenous people of all the lands that we are on today. And while we meet on a virtual platform, I would like to take a moment to acknowledge the importance of these lands that we call home. And we do this to reaffirm our commitment and responsibility in improving relationships between nations and to improving our own understanding of local Indigenous people and their cultures. So from coast to coast, we acknowledge the ancestral and unceded territory of all of the Inuit, Métis, and First Nation people to call this land home. So please join me in a moment of reflection to acknowledge the harms and mistakes of the past and to consider how we can each, in our own way, try to move forward in a spirit of reconciliation and collaboration. So for the speaker's biography, the first one is Joanne Moss, and she's the executive director of the Canadian Foundation for Animal-Assisted Support Services. And she's the founder and CEO of that foundation, and she's a passionate servant leader and devoted disability advocate for the past 30 years. And Joanne also has expertise in humane education with hands-on experience in the delivery of animal-assisted services. Among her professional designations is a professional certification with multi-health systems, a bachelor degree in counseling, and specializations in areas such as project and voluntary sector management. Joanne was presented with the Caring Canadian Award by Governor David Johnston in 2015, and Joanne describes human-animal bond as love just for being. Why is it important to her? Because she believes that love changes everything. As for Azra Alibhai, she's a registered social worker and consultant, and she's a scholar and works as a social worker at Able2 and support for people with disabilities. And she received her master's in social work and a Bachelor of Arts honors with high distinction in psychology, neuroscience, and mental health from Carleton University. At Carleton, Azra deepened our understanding of the human-animal bond and was integral in advocating for alternative ways of reducing student mental health problems, such as laughter, art, and dog therapies. She was also integral in advocating alternative ways of learning for students with disabilities at Carleton and through her mentorship programs. She is the recipient of several prestigious academic and civic awards, including the Senate Medal for Outstanding Academic Achievement, the House of Commons Voluntary Service Award, and the Real Grant Award in Advancing Reconciliation with Indigenous Peoples. Azra also works and volunteers with diverse populations who require direct social service interventions and access to community resources. Her passion for working and advocating for diverse and underserved populations influences her research that focuses on developing and implementing innovative care models, utilizing a holistic approach to health and healing. And Azra has presented her research on animal-assisted interventions globally and works with animals in practice. She is currently completing training and certification on integrative therapies. And with that being said, let's start with Joanne's presentation.
Thank you so much, Pascal, and for Malo for all the work that you're doing behind the scenes this evening. I would just like to welcome everybody this evening as well, and thank you for joining us this evening. I'm looking forward to taking a little journey with you concerning FASD and animal-assisted services. So a little bit about the foundation. We have existed since, or serving Canadians is a better way of putting it, I suppose. We've been serving Canadians now since 1998, although we were doing it informally prior to that timeline. But the Canadian Foundation for Animal-Assisted Support Services is an impartial national registered charity. We promote and support the well-being of Canadians and the welfare of the animals involved in animal-assisted services. And you'll also hear me referring to it as AAS quite a bit this evening as well. And what we do is connect and collaborate with a number of different stakeholders. So individuals in communities, service providers, various people from various disciplines and sectors, and other stakeholders, such as consumers and also small businesses and anybody basically that has an interest, either direct or indirect interest in this type of work. And we do so to pay forward the human-animal bond. We also foster unity and diversity to enhance and cultivate Canada's burgeoning AAS sector. to promote what we call One Health for people, pets, and partners. And when people meet me in an elevator, I was told to be prepared and have an elevator pitch. So essentially how I describe us is that we help to connect dots and fill gaps in Canada to promote and recognize Canada's promising animal assisted services sector. So AAS are beneficial relationships that nurture, and there's that term again, One Health for people, pets, and partners. And health in this context includes the physical, mental, emotional, and social well-being of people of all ages, and the welfare of pets and partners. And the partners are other animals involved in AAS. And the term One Health, I'll just give you a little brief snapshot of what that's all about. One Health is actually part of a global movement that was started by veterinarians because of diseases that humans can transfer to animals and animals can transfer to humans. And so it has now become a global collaboration around the world to make sure that both people and animals are being cared for and are healthy and are safe. And so we are essentially linked to the One Health Global Network as well. So animal assisted services come in all shapes and sizes, as you can see, from small animals such as a bird, or it could be a hamster, it can be any kind of lap animal, bunny rabbit, and dogs, horses, cats, goats, llamas, you name it. But this picture just gives you a little bit of a snapshot of some of the different environments. And I think one thing that's in common in this picture is everybody's got a smile on their face, and that's always good medicine, especially for people who are struggling. So some of the common categories for AAS are as follows: animal assisted activities, education, intervention, and therapy. And the abbreviations follow. And the activities focus on recreational activities. The education typically help people to learn life skills and things like reading as well. So you're talking also about education in terms of becoming a better reader and understanding the words that are being read and so forth. So comprehension and various other related activities. Animal assisted intervention, or AAI, is action oriented, just as the word intervention implies. And it can also be goal-oriented as well, even though sometimes it can be more spontaneous. And then there is animal-assisted therapy, which is a more structured method of working with animals. And it is very goal-oriented. And it's sometimes the term AAT and AAI are often used interchangeably. And so there are a number of stakeholders that are involved in this environment, in this landscape, and it's changing every day. It's quite amazing, actually. So there are a number of sectors that are involved, such as social services, healthcare, justice, and corrections. And some folks think that this would just be relevant to the public sector when these references are made. But actually, these cross-sectoral also includes the private sector, because there are practitioners that are working in social services, healthcare, justice, and corrections that are not just involved with the public sector, but also the private sector as well. And in addition to that, there are also a number of different disciplines involved, everything from natural sciences to social sciences, humanities, applied sciences, and so on. And so this is all-encompassing, everything from veterinarians to social workers and occupational health and safety folks, just a real array of amazing people that are out there doing wonderful things with animals and humans to improve quality of life. And so, as you can see, we have a very smart companion up here with his glasses. He's a very serious pup. And I also always like to look at him, especially when talking to children about reading. This dog is a little bit of an inspiration to them. So goal-oriented AAT involves a reading program, but there would be goals and there would be other underlying areas that are being explored in that situation. So sometimes some of the activities may cross over, but for very different reasons. So in this case, I just wanted to share a little quote with you. And I also wanted to note that there are links provided for the sources as well, in case you want to go back and look at these later. As interest in animal-assisted therapy, or AAT, grows, there is an increasing need to differentiate informal activities from formal professionally directed therapies. What that means is that there are a lot of professionals that are involved in AAT now, such as physiotherapists, occupational therapists, or practitioners, as well as social workers, psychologists, and clinical services, and so on. So there is becoming a trend that requires professionals to be involved in these activities or in therapies, as opposed to everybody calling it a therapy or a therapeutic program. So despite a large body of evidence demonstrating the benefits of human-animal interactions, a significant number of studies are centered on animal-assisted activities. So again, what this means is that there are not necessarily as many studies on AAT as there are the activities, which are not as structured and without continued animal-assisted therapy services. AAT is goal-oriented and structured, as I mentioned earlier, and they also refer to it as an intervention as well at times, provided by certified professionals, which is what I was just mentioning a moment ago. Could be a physiotherapist or a nurse and so on, working with a trained and certified animal. And certification that they're referring to here is done by a group of individuals from different programs. It's usually a private certification program where they assess the suitability of the animal to be involved in the program or the service. So, which is an integral part of treatment process. So again, the animals, without them, where would we be? Thanks to the animals, we are all be able to come and speak about this today as well. So AAT, as mentioned previously, is a therapeutic intervention that incorporates animals such as horses, dogs, cats, pigs, and so on, to enhance and complement benefits of traditional therapies. And I really like this photo because these are two very healthy, happy guinea pigs, and it looks like from their housing situation that they've got a really good environment to live in, and that's always equally as refreshing and rewarding to see as well. So this is a young man who absolutely adores therapeutic riding, and when I was having a conversation with him once upon a time, everything that he was talking about and trying to describe as to why he thought that was so important, it really, what I was really hearing is that he loved to learn and he felt more alive. You know, he was living and he was able to love and be loved, and that was so important to him. And that was very evident, especially in this photo. I also wanted to share along those lines, Vincent Burns quote here, reported on the beneficial effects of the use of animal-assisted therapy with diagnoses such as cerebral palsy, attention deficit disorder, language disabilities, intellectual disabilities, conduct disorders, epilepsy, autism, and also developmental disabilities. So as you can see, there's a huge range of disabilities that animals can certainly partner with their human handlers to help mitigate, if you will. Also, Borgartner and Cho reported on the positive effects of AAT in children with learning disabilities and emotional behavior disorder and autism, and low self-esteem. And it's really interesting because there is more and more research showing up daily, actually, and yet in some cases it's still considered not necessarily evidence-based, but so we're trying to change that. There's a lot more research to be done yet, so that people recognize it as something that goes beyond just the human-animal bond itself, but it does many more things for people than as a result of the bonding. So this was an interesting area to note as well. Paul Wright from the University of Fraser Valley also wrote a paper, and he calls it "Who Let the Dogs In?" It's a narrative examination into the need for animal-assisted intervention-based programming for youth in residential centers. So there you have another setting. And it was also noted that it has been estimated that 70% of girls and 60% of boys meet the criteria for conduct disorder. And that was back in 2005. So it'd be interesting to look at some comparative studies to see what that looks like now. So in the context of residential centers, it can be very useful to introduce animals. They can help break a boring routine. They can also help in terms of the process of just being engaged, more engaged, and also encourage people to show up at their sessions. So progress is being made with young offenders. But most correctional services programs are in the US. They're very, very few in Canada, unfortunately. They often use a blend of behavior change strategies such as behavior modification and counseling and other therapies, reality therapy, and specialized programs for the correction of problematic behaviors. Okay, and also another term has emerged, and they call it DAT, or dog-assisted therapy, which is also promising supplementary treatment for children and adults with FASD. There is limited research concerning FASD and AAT, but perhaps we can change that in the future if there is interest to do so, and resources that we can facilitate that. That would be a long-standing dream come true if we could potentially explore that with interested persons and parties. And yet, here's another example of AAT, in this case, more of an activity and education, if you will. But doggy daycare in BC in a women's prison is also helping the women who handle these dogs in daycare. There's a lot of tactile involvement, so touching and grooming and getting to understand the body language of these critters, these dogs. An abundance of research shows that the physiological benefits of the presence of animals is very valuable. It can improve quality of life in many different ways, such as even looking at the changes in people's blood pressure and their heart rates, and also their survival rates are as well. So this is also something that is proving that the bond has many, many benefits, including the healthcare, or encompassing healthcare and so much more. And that was taken from Correctional Services Canada. And there are also many possible benefits when people interact with animals in this context for individuals and their families as well, in some instances. These interactions, they encourage playfulness, they enrich living in the moment, so learning to just be, facilitate open communications, they motivate people to attend sessions, nurture bonding and lived experiences, promote active living, recognize abilities versus disabilities, reduce depression and anxiety, and the stigma associated with treatment, renew a sense of hope, shed light on behaviors and sensory concerns, as well as a shift in focus from problems to progress. So that was a little bit of a summary on animal-assisted therapy and what that looks like on an everyday basis. And now I'm going to shift gears here for a moment and just tell you a little bit more about animal-assisted services as a whole, something we call the big picture. So what does this landscape really look like? It is, as I mentioned, there's a lot of stakeholders, as we've just talked about, but it's growing by leaps and bounds daily. There's new research showing up constantly. There's more and more people getting involved in the delivery of services, yet it still remains very fragmented. The services are unregulated. They are self-regulated or peer-reviewed, but they are not regulated by the government. So that's what we mean by that. There is no common language or common definitions. So oftentimes various terminologies are used interchangeably, which can sometimes cause a little bit of confusion. There are a number of private standards that guide people's practices in most cases, but there also has been a growing need for what we call national standards of Canada, so that we can have basically a benchmark to determine and identify the practices that are being provided, the services that are being provided, and knowing what they really do look like across the board. So we have a way of measuring the success and the progress that's being made. Right now, we can't do that because the standards are private, and there are many, many of them. So we'll talk about that a little more in the next slide. So I mentioned that we are starting to develop standards. That's been also a long time coming. We've known for many decades, actually, that that standards needed to be developed, national standards, because again, they vary considerably all over the place, even for similar services. These foundational standards that we're developing now, we've started to develop, are looking at the management systems of anybody who is involved in the service delivery of animal assisted services. Also looking at the production and delivery of animal assisted services, training and handling of the animals and their care, as well as what to do when there's a national emergency as well. Planning as a nation. What do we do? How do businesses keep operating and helping their clients, and how do we continue to care for the animals? Like, for example, during the pandemic, that was presented a lot of hurdles for practitioners to try to overcome. And the word voluntary, again, as I said, this is not something that's mandated. Interested stakeholders come together because they care and because they want to be able to really understand the sector and where they can get credible services and be confident that that what they're getting is being delivered by qualified practitioners as well. So that is very important to ensure that persons with disabilities and other daily living challenges are not exploited in any way. Also, it's very important to make sure that the animals are cared for as well. And so, having said all of these things, another one of our primary objectives is to establish what we refer to as the Canadian Animal Assisted Services Virtual Center of Excellence. And all of these initiatives are really pointing to service excellence, promoting it, supporting it, and encouraging it. And so this new portal that we hope to begin developing sooner than later, and we're very hopeful, because we've been working on this initiative for quite some time. There'd be 3 doorways to go through. One would be community, to welcome the community, and a number of features after you enter that door. There's philanthropy for those who want to support the efforts, as well as we have a One Health Fund and a military fund as well to help consumers and or persons with special needs, as well as our veterans and our first responders. And then sector innovation doorway as well, so that we can continue to grow the sector, but with the infrastructure that it needs, so that it's easier to navigate and understand, and it has the credibility that it deserves. You'll see that we have a big thank you to all of you for joining us this evening, and our contact information follows this slide. But again, thank you to Health Nexus.
We're now going to turn over to Azra.
Good evening. I'm delighted to present one of my most favorite areas of practice, animal-assisted services. Tonight, I will provide a brief overview of animal-assisted services, discuss the research that supports the therapeutic use of animals, specifically the beneficial effects of canines across populations, disciplines, and settings, and how this relates to individuals with FASD. I will then conclude with a snapshot of my research project examining the beneficial use of animal therapies among people with FASD. Let me start by first telling you a little bit about myself and my journey. Besides being a lifelong animal lover and advocate, I'm a social worker that supports people across the age and disability spectrum. I received a Bachelor of Arts honors in psychology, neuroscience, and mental health, and a master's in social work from Carleton University. Currently, I am working towards training and certification on integrative therapies and in animal-assisted psychotherapy. I was working at Carleton and with Ottawa Therapy Dogs and Therapeutic Pods of Canada that I gained the experience that not only deepened my understanding of the human-animal bond, but highlighted the on-the-ground reality and importance of the research that I and others in the field have been conducting, which in turn strengthened my commitment towards developing research, programming, and advocating for the use of complementary alternative therapies, specifically animal therapies at home, in practice, and in policy. And not to mention, who wouldn't love working with their best friend? Speaking of, let me introduce you to my esteemed colleague and coworker, Cairo. Cairo is named after the city in Egypt for several reasons. First, to pay tribute to my ancestral heritage. Second, the historical record and literature suggests that it was the ancient Egyptians that first domesticated animals. As a coworker, Cairo has a penchant for inserting himself into inter-office politics, requires numerous puppuccino breaks, and of course the requisite bio breaks, which are covers for surveying those he deems his competition, the neighborhood chipmunks and squirrels. Cairo is pre-med, and we're at the beginning stages of building our therapeutic relationship. Cairo and I have been studying hard, and we have high hopes of graduating next winter. You can follow our journey on Instagram, links of which will be provided at the end of my presentation. As many of us here today are aware, mental health issues are the leading cause of disability, morbidity, and mortality across underserved populations. Specifically, people living with visible and invisible disabilities are one of the most marginalized, discriminated, and underserved populations in our society, especially when it comes to receiving adequate mental health care and services. Receiving treatment poses a challenge for people living with disabilities since there's a lack of supports, long wait lists, and the considerable barriers to accessing these services. Importantly, interventions often do not reflect the needs and desires of our underserved populations in regards to their own health and well-being, often adopting a one-size-fits-all approach. This is especially true for individuals with FASD. As such, there's a pressing need to offer a range of non-medical interventions as a standalone or as an adjunct that can address our underserved populations' weakened healthcare and social support systems, which has significantly increased interest in our topic today of animal-assisted supports. As well, this provides the background of my research project investigating the beneficial impact of animal-assisted supports among individuals with FASD. The field of animal-assisted services is growing rapidly and is gaining popularity in the media, in research, in practice, and in public awareness, recognizing the beneficial impact the human-animal bond can have on the individual and community health. Interestingly, the beneficial relationship between humans and animals has long been documented throughout history, with evidence and artifacts supporting the mental, physical, social, and spiritual health-inducing benefits of human-animal interactions, specifically with dogs, which has been recorded across cultures, religions, and in many places around the world. The basic premise or the heart of animal-assisted services is the use of the human-animal bond, which is the mutually beneficial and dynamic relationship between people and animals that is influenced by interactions that are essential to their health and well-being. For instance, these interactions can be as simple as petting, grooming, or verbally interacting with a dog. Research shows that these simple interactions are natural mood boosters, stress busters, and pain relievers by stimulating the release of endorphins, which increase feelings of happiness, pleasure, can reduce stress, and alleviate pain. Feelings of loneliness and social isolation can also be improved with human-animal interactions, suggesting that animals have a positive influence on our health. In fact, just the mere presence of a dog, in person or virtually, can generate these beneficial health effects. I know I'm personally guilty of watching hours of canine antics to boost my mood. The global pandemic has highlighted this bond for some of us. Our pets became our lifelines during the lockdowns. They provided love, social support, and connection. The pandemic also spurred many people into a desperate search to secure pet companionship. Shelters, rescues, and breeders were subsequently left pretty much empty, leaving people to pay an exorbitant amount of money to purchase a companion animal. Specifically, dogs were and are the hot ticket item. People are spending upward of $4,000 to purchase a dog as their companion. Dogs were also prescribed to clients to help alleviate depression, loneliness, and isolation during the lockdown, as in-person treatments were suspended or limited. The majority of pet owners reported improvements in their physical and mental health after a pet was brought into the home and felt their pets helped them feel a sense of purpose. Pets represent a billion-dollar industry in the marketplace, such as with clothing, accessories, and spas. Interestingly, in some parts of the world, there are more pets in households than cell phones. We even see this bond in different contexts across the world. For instance, on this slide, you see refugees line up at the borders with their companion animal. And closer to home, the majority of North American households reported having at least one companion animal. Emerging research reporting that in Canada, pet ownership increased by more than 20% during the pandemic, and this number is increasing day by day. Recently, a survey indicated that 95% of pet owners considered their pet as part of their family. The attachment to a pet has been suggested to be as strong as a human-to-human bond. For instance, the grieving process during the loss of a pet has been likened to the death of a family member. And 93% of pet owners reported that they would sacrifice their lives for their pets, as evidenced during hurricanes, floods, and the border crossing with refugees. When Hurricane Katrina struck in 2005, so many people refused to evacuate without their dogs that Congress passed a law requiring disaster preparedness plans to make accommodations for pets. What these brief facts point to is a particularly special bond between humans and their companion animals, and why animal interventions can be so effective. While these examples seem anecdotal, we will soon look at the scientific evidence that supports the positive impact of animals on human health and well-being. But before we do, it's important to note that while my focus is on canines, and as Joanne mentioned, these therapies are not only limited to the interactions with dogs. Animal-assisted services enlist the help of a variety of animals in research, treatment, or at home. Each animal brings its own specific temperament, culturally relevant treatment, and skills to the therapeutic environment to improve health and well-being. The kinds of animals that a specific program uses depends on the needs and goals of the individual and the types of therapy used. For example, Dell and colleagues measured the use of animal-assisted therapies using horses as a component for substance use disorders for First Nations and Inuit adolescents. Their findings included benefits in the areas of spiritual connection, communication, and psychoeducation. In an upcoming presentation, I will go more in depth on the positive impact and practical implications of other animals. So you cat, rabbit, wolf, horse, bird, and pig lovers, stay tuned. Although a variety of animals are also linked to numerous benefits, dogs are the most popular choice for animal-assisted services in research, treatment, and in home. Dogs undergo temperament testing to work with a variety of populations and are said to be more practical as they are more accessible and easier to transport as compared to a horse or a llama. Dogs are also easier to train than a cat or a rabbit. Dogs are also trained to handle a variety of sensitive situations and sounds, making their temperament and behavior what has been termed as bomb-proof, providing one with a calming and non-threatening environment. Dogs are also known to be the hit of the party. Given their social predisposition, dogs engage in a myriad of tricks and unscripted behaviors, often soliciting laughter, stimulating the release of mood-boosting hormones, which, as I mentioned, increase positive affect, such as happiness and pleasure, helping to reduce depression, social isolation, and loneliness. Canines have also been shown to have anxiolytic effects, which bring about feelings of calmness and relaxation and produce an overall sense of well-being. Dogs have also been known to be non-judgmental and accepting. They don't care if you're sick, if you have a meltdown, if you haven't bathed, or if you've yelled at them for eating your mother's birthday cake. True story. They are always there offering unconditional love. Some of you can attest to this. You could be gone an hour, a day, or a week, and their sloppy kisses are always the same. Dogs have also been shown to act as social facilitators, where the presence of an animal increases social interactions between people. Dogs are great conversational starters, especially with people you would never expect. 85% of pet owners indicated that they had gotten to know more people in their neighborhood after acquiring a dog, resulting in long-lasting friendships. Furthermore, people with disabilities often find that humans can at times be socially awkward around them. However, when accompanied by their canine companion, they felt that it broke down barriers and allowed for more comfortable and natural interactions. Research also shows that if you have a dog, people perceive you as more approachable, empathetic, and even happier. It is also a mating signal that signifies you're a nurturing person. So forget that dating app Plenty of Fish, it's plenty of dogs. Let's take a look at the scientific evidence supporting the therapeutic benefits of dogs. And for those of you who are still sitting on the fence about the beneficial impact or haven't tried to convince your family or boss to integrate animals in your personal or professional life, take note of the following studies. Friedman and colleagues were among the first to examine the beneficial physiological and psychological effects of pet ownership on human health. The researchers examined the survival rates of adult patients who had been hospitalized for various heart-related conditions. It was observed that patients who owned dogs showed reductions in blood pressure, heart rate, and reported decreases in feelings of depression, anxiety, and loneliness. 1 year after their discharge, these patients were also found to have better survival rates and reduce the amount of their medications compared to non-pet owners. These beneficial health effects of dogs have also been shown among non-dog owners. In this groundbreaking study, researchers found that a brief 5-minute interaction with a friendly but unfamiliar dog lowered their stress levels and enhanced positive mood-boosting hormones among 19 to 55-year-olds. Of interest, the beta endorphin hormone has been shown to be involved in the facilitation of learning and memory. So if any one of you are known in your family as the forgetful one, this is the study for you. In another pivotal study, investigators examined whether social support provided by a therapy dog or a close friend could reduce stress levels during a stressful task. And what they found was that participants' level of stress were significantly reduced in the dog therapy condition compared to the friend social support conditions, suggesting that in certain situations, dogs are ideal companions by affecting a calming influence and providing support in a non-judgmental manner. It was suggested that friends may impede this process since participants may feel judged by their friends under situations of stress. Now, let's take a look at a snapshot of one of my previous research projects. My study utilized the use of animal-assisted activities. As Joanne noted, these programs use trained and certified volunteers from local therapy organizations who bring in their trained and certified pet for an on-site meet and greet session. These handlers, the human end of the leash, accompanies their therapy animals to various settings, for example, to hospitals, long-term care homes, disaster sites, courtrooms, schools, and most recently, to the vaccine sites. These sessions are typically unstructured, such that the dog and handler are present and available in an open environment for anyone wishing to engage with the animals. The Visiting Dogs program have shown to have a positive influence on the environment by providing a sense of comfort and reassurance, as some of these places may feel isolating, filled with uncertainty and anxiety. One very popular animal-assisted activity program is the Campus Canines program. There's an abundance of research across school campuses that have implemented animal activity programs with overwhelming success in supporting the student population. Across the board, data overwhelming reports that canine campus programs are a major source of comfort and support, providing much stress relief. My colleagues and I designed a study that focused on the buffering effects of dog therapy to reduce symptoms of anxiety, depression, and loneliness in university students, with a particular focus on students with visible and invisible disabilities during the final exam period, which is known to be a highly stressful time. Results indicated that a brief 5-minute session with a therapy dog buffered the negative physiological and psychological effects of test anxiety. The program served as an icebreaker for students from all different backgrounds, such as with first-year and international students. Students overwhelmingly reported that this program brought them emotional and social support during this time. It was also reported that it's a great avenue to share resources. One student wrote that they not only found a great place to shop for affordable books, but also was informed about a great shawarma restaurant in town. Following the meet and greet sessions with the therapy dogs, 96% of students reported wanting more often and permanent animal support programs at the university. From here, the visiting therapy dogs during the exam period were so popular at alleviating stress and supporting students' mental health that we transitioned to weekly therapy dog visits at the library, which increased patronage, positive mood in students, and encouraged more quality study breaks. Recently, Carleton staff and their dogs were trained and certified to offer daily in-person and virtual benefits to support students year-round. Today, many colleges and universities now offer animal-assisted activities and therapies as part of their outreach counseling program in order to increase mental health awareness among the student population. The research points to a more successful relationship by facilitating the alliance between mental health providers and students by creating a welcoming, non-threatening, and relaxing environment. In fact, many students who attended the dog outreach programs subsequently returned for counseling. As such, reducing the stigma that surrounds seeking support and promoted help-seeking behaviors. Animal therapies has also shown remarkable results in the treatment of post-traumatic stress disorder. Studies have noted that interacting with a therapy dog for 1 week decreased symptoms by 82% and sleep medications by half. Research on dog-assisted treatment for addiction has also shown significant results. A study examining the benefits of dog therapy during weekly group inpatient treatment for substance use disorders found reduced hostility and feelings of sadness in adolescent boys. The authors also reported a strong therapeutic alliance was established between the clients as well as other members of the group, resulting in more productive sessions. Recently, Dell and colleagues found that 88% of Canadians identified their relationship with their pet as an important support in their recovery for addiction. Prison-based animal programs is also a popular intervention that positively contributes to rehabilitation and recidivism rates in offender populations. Several methods of canine supports have been used with success, such as incorporating dogs into the therapy process, or individuals who are incarcerated train dogs for adoption or as service animals for individuals with disabilities. Findings across studies that have examined the effectiveness of prison-based animal programs highlighted the beneficial impact of dogs with this population, such as with improved physical and emotional health, reduced prison misconduct, and an enhanced sense of responsibility and self-control. The use of animal-assisted services has also been found to be beneficial for children's mental health in foster care. Researchers found that children in foster care who are not responding well to traditional talk therapy found significant results when incorporating a dog in sessions. For children who have attachment issues or fear of abandonment, the unconditional companionship offered by a dog is very healing. The author also found that everyday interactions played a role in the child's development and healing, providing children with an increased sense of comfort and stability. Now, let's take a look at animal-assisted services among neurodiverse populations. The research shows that many neurodiverse children, youth, and adults have a special bond with dogs, such that there is an abundance of research on the beneficial effects with their pets, service animals, and in animal-assisted services. However, as Joanne mentioned, there's minimal empirical research on the positive impact of animal-assisted services with FASD populations. A relatively large body of research has investigated the efficacy of using animal-assisted supports for individuals with autism spectrum disorder. Based on extensive review of the literature, research has documented that individuals with autism interacting with their pet dog, service dog, or through animal-assisted therapies experience fewer meltdowns, increased confidence levels, decreased anxiety, increased empathic responses, increased motor skills, decreased behaviors viewed as negative, such as repetitive behaviors or tantrums. Increased social behaviors included verbalizations or time spent in conversation was also noted. The research is scarce on the impact of canines among parents, caregivers, and their families. However, a survey reported a reduction in stress levels as well as an increase in family cohesion after bringing home a pet dog or service dog. There's also an abundance of research on the beneficial effects of dog interventions among individuals with ADHD. This study examined the efficacy of dog-assisted therapy as an adjunct to cognitive behavioral therapy in children with ADHD. Results indicated that participants exhibited more pro-social behaviors, such as engaging in positive social interaction with peers and being able to attend to social cues. researchers added to the success of these findings using just therapy dogs as the intervention. Over a 5-year period, they observed children diagnosed with ADHD who had not yet started medication and who interacted with the therapy dog as the intervention experienced a reduction in attention and improvement in social skills and self-esteem. The brief review on the existing literature indicates that animal-assisted services is very promising among a variety of populations and provides a myriad of benefits, including emotional, behavioral, cognitive, neurological, psychological, or social. Despite the fact that animal-assisted services are increasingly being implemented with so many significant advantages to individuals, their families, and the community, the empirical research still remains limited. This is especially true with FASD populations. Few studies have investigated the efficacy of animals within these populations. That being said, the numerous benefits of dog therapies that we've just reviewed may be useful for FASD populations who exhibit similar symptomology, comorbidities, and consequences. Although the research is lacking, the benefits that have been reported are significant. The CHIMO project investigated the benefits of using animal-assisted therapy in residential care settings among youth and adults with FASD. Researchers found significant increases in social skills, participation in therapy, and motivation. Additionally, participants reported feeling more comfortable and more willing to discuss issues with their therapists. One participant who had a history of family violence, addiction, in addition to FASD, reported having no trust in adults and had a difficult time speaking during her sessions. When the presence of the therapy dog was introduced to her session, she became more willing to talk about herself in therapy. Throughout the years, the researchers were also able to show that participants who participated in a residential treatment program combined with dog-assisted therapy showed significant improvements in other areas, such as a reduction in behavioral problems and improved emotional health. Participants receiving animal-assisted therapies also reported that the dog therapy programs helped them perform at home, at school, and in residential care to a greater extent than those who received traditional forms of therapy. Additionally, the CHIMO project found that across all age groups, from children to adults with FASD in residential treatment using AAT, these were the big 5 most common benefits reported. This study was recently released and adds to the scientific literature showing promising results in children and adolescents with FASD. Vidal and colleagues used an AAT model to evaluate dog therapy combined with pharmacological treatments. And what they found was that those who participated in the dog-assisted therapy compared to the non-dog-assisted therapy program showed greater improvements in social skills and a greater reduction in the severity of FASD symptoms. They also showed greater reductions in externalizing symptoms. The authors also highlighted that not one single participant in the DAT group dropped out of treatment, stating that this was an encouraging intervention, as from their experience, it was difficult to keep individuals with FASD engaged in treatment. Service dogs that are specifically trained to assist a person with a disability has also been shown to make a significant impact on many people with disabilities, their families, and their communities. And this is especially true for individuals with FASD, reporting dramatic changes in their lives. FASD service dogs is an emerging category that is being legally evaluated to ensure the same rights that other service dogs are afforded in Canada. Although the support for the use of specially trained FASD service dogs is largely anecdotal, the benefits are considerable among all age groups who have been fortunate enough to acquire an FASD service dog. Stakeholders have reported a variety of benefits, such as academically, developmentally, and socially. Significant improvements have also been noted in communication skills, advancement in concrete and abstract thinking, improved focus, positive social interactions, empathy, a sense of responsibility, decreased anxiety, stress, loneliness, and a reduction in overall family stress. Some families have noted these significant improvements within the first week of training with their service dog, meaning positive outcomes were observed prior to bringing home their service dog. FASD service dogs undergo specialized training to meet the individual's needs. The dogs are able to support the individual in a variety of areas, such as with their socialization, psychological, behavioral, and emotional stability. One important role of this FASD service dog is to support the building of an individual's self-confidence, which can promote independence. Tethering is one such technique that supports individuals with FASD who may have high impulsivity and tend to bolt or wander away. Tethering is a harness that joins as a 3-unit team to the parent or caregiver, the dog, and the individual with FASD. Tethering anchors the individual, so if the individual takes off, the adult has enough time to catch up, and they can only go so far with a 70-pound dog attached to them. And if the individual becomes disengaged from the tether, the service dog is trained to detect their handler's scent so that they can easily find the individual in a variety of environments. Tethering and tracking minimizes the stress and frustration often reported during outings. Furthermore, the individual with FASD gains more independence and control over their actions without always having to hold an adult's hand. Another way dogs can support building self-confidence is when the individual trains the dog to obey commands and teach tricks. This can promote a sense of mastery, build self-confidence, as well as increase their communication skills. As previously mentioned, dogs exert a calming influence in our environments. For individuals with FASD, this is shown to be extremely valuable. For example, for individuals with over-aroused nervous systems, the service dog can be trained in behavior disruption and interruption in order to stop and replace the behavior with an interaction with a dog. The dog will snuggle, nudge, lick, use their paw or their weight depending on the circumstances. In this slide, you see the service dog exerting deep pressure therapy. This behavior technique has been shown to be useful when individuals become over-anxious and overstimulated. The dog is trained to interrupt behavior by pushing against or lying on top of the individual. In this way, teaching the individual to self-regulate, redirect, and calm themselves. As a preventative measure, the dog can also alert the individual or an adult, as if to say, "It's time, come spend time with me." And this can be simply accomplished by just a nudge of the dog's nose. The presence of an FASD service dog also provides a calming influence when accompanying their handler's daily routine. The individual feels less pressure when they go through the day on their own or with their human companions. This reduction in stress also helps to reduce poor sleeping habits, which is commonly experienced by people with FASD. As we know, for individuals with FASD, social relationships with people can be complicated to navigate. But as discussed, dogs are social facilitators and can open up the space towards improving the individual's communication and social skills and promote greater understanding towards people. Although an individual may experience complex social relations with people, the relationship between the individual and a dog is straightforward. There are no hidden agendas, no confusing facial expressions, or voice tones to discern. On the other hand, a dog's posture and/or body language is simple. For the individual, the dog represents affection, companionship, and what I like to think of as allyship and non-judgment, which facilitates a level of uncomplicated bonding and relationship building. The dog gives the individual a reason to communicate and something appropriate to talk about. A multitude of stakeholders have reported that individuals with their dogs became more comfortable speaking to others as they gained more practice talking, increasing their vocabulary and decreasing their anxiety in social situations. Throughout my academic and professional experiences, I have witnessed the beneficial use of animal-assisted services as a supplement to more traditional counseling methods, in activity programs, and from our beloved pets. I have studied and observed how the mere presence of an animal, virtually or in person, can ease and accelerate the therapeutic relationship, break down communication barriers, create a platform for personal growth, learning, and comfort. At the same time, I have also experienced the challenges. For instance, the funding issues coupled with a lack of legitimacy of animal-assisted services as an acceptable area of practice. As we have demonstrated, the use of animal-assisted services has been found to be an effective modality and intervention treatment across a variety of populations and settings, extending across a multitude of professions and the numerous ways that animal-assisted services can be applied. The literature indicates that the numerous benefits of dog therapy may be useful for FASD populations who exhibit similar symptomologies, accompanying disabilities, and consequences presented in tonight's webinar. However, there lacks crucial scientific research studies and funding on the value of animal-assisted services, specifically in treating individuals with FASD. Therefore, my research endeavors to fill these gaps and will implement the strengths presented in the above studies and address some of the limitations in the research to make a contribution to an emerging field. If you would like to participate or learn more about this project, references used in this presentation, please email me at barkingdownbarriers@gmail.com. Thank you.
So, Joanne, could you please tell me what are the obstacles and barriers to people connecting to service provider who offer animal assisted services?
Well, that's a good question because it is very difficult for people to know where to begin. And if you do a Google search, you're going to come up with an awful lot of hits. We are actually, as part of that portal that I just mentioned, one of the features is to develop a digital platform directory of services. And so we used to have a very robust one to make it easier for people to find the services they were looking for. But we discontinued it simply because we need a more robust directory so that it will provide a lot of information about the service providers before you connect with them. But it'll be better than doing a Google search, as good as Google can be. It'll be very helpful in terms of people finding what they need and also making sure that the sources they're reaching out to are credible and sort of not an unknown commodity or provider, for example. Does that answer the question?
No, it does. So when a family
Yes.
is assessing whether or not they want to work with someone, how do they know that they're not a quack doctor or they might provide some high quality supports?
Well, again, the standards will help with that. Right now, we're one of the reasons that we took the other directory offline was because we didn't have national standards. And so it is very important to know, even for us as a foundation, to know who we're working with and who are the service providers, because we can't endorse them at this point. We have to remain impartial for a number of reasons, but we want to be able to provide information, like I said, through a searchable directory. And the only way that providers will be able to showcase their work in the directory will be to answer a lot of very important questions that consumers may not know to ask, so that they can pick and choose who they would feel comfortable approaching.
Do you know if there's any family whom you've worked with or know who really benefited from those services?
Oh gosh, I meet people all the time. In fact, we're constantly getting emails from people. I would say that we hear a lot from people with service dogs as well, and that are very pleased with them. What we hear a lot of times, though, is that people are not able to access the services. Practitioners are having trouble keeping up with their requests. There's a long waiting list, growing waiting list. So there's such a need, to develop that skilled workforce and all of these reinforcements to make sure that people know who they're reaching out to and that they are credible sources, and feeling good about who they're opening up to and sharing their personal information with, and all of those things. And so even without those things, people are still, wanting to have, access the services. But anybody that I've talked to that has, in most cases, they're very pleased with the results. Very seldom do we get complaints, because we also used to vet complaints nationally. And to be honest, there are a lot fewer complaints than people singing the praises of what practitioners are doing out there, which is really a good sign.
So we know animal support services help many populations with autism, with ADHD. What's new about the research coming up, and what can we learn from recent studies that you've seen?
What I'm finding from the work that we do is that actually, when we started the Standards Initiative, we received documents from around the world, which was very encouraging, about practices. And there is a huge push now for standards, the type of standards, that we need the national standards. And so research, there's tons of research, as I said, daily, weekly. There are literally thousands of more research documents or research projects going on. But there has been a global cry out for the need to reduce the fragmentation, as I mentioned, to develop the consistent standards that can be used to identify and measure the objectives and the impact of these services. And so that's what we're seeing through our lens, is that there is definitely global agreement that we need a common language. We need, consistent standards and common language, all of those things.
Could you elaborate a little bit more on the distinction between education and activities and therapy and interventions? Oftentimes, when professionals offer these, they don't specify, and when families and individuals want to access these services, they may not know the differences.
As Joanne was referring to, animal assisted support is this umbrella term. And under that comes all these different types of frameworks for using animals, whether it's in practice, within clinical, or even unstructured avenues. So one of the main ones that you refer to is animals in education. These can be used also in activities, or it can also have structure. It really depends on what the client is looking for, or what the provider. It always depends. So one of the biggest programs is a reading initiative. So reading education assistance dogs, which is part of the animal assisted education umbrella. And that can be structured where not a therapist, but a therapy team can come in and bring in their therapy animal, which actually helps whatever population you're working with, help them read better and feel connected and enable their reading progress. So this can actually be structured and unstructured. It always depends. So animal assisted education using a reading program has been shown to have such positive results with individuals with their reading comprehension. There's been new research on using animal assisted education with this reading model with refugees and with people with disabilities. And in all these cases, whether they were structured or unstructured, what was found was that there was a less of a dropout rate, an increase in knowledge, and also a reduction in anxiety and when they were working with these animals.
It's a complex question because, again, without the common vocabulary and the definitions and standardized practices, it's difficult for a consumer to start looking for the type of service they want. So it is, as Azra mentioned, very, very specific to the needs of the individual. And yet you don't necessarily want to open up to a stranger about what your needs are, so there's sort of a catch-22. What happens when people contact us is I basically just ask very, very simple questions, because we don't provide the frontline services and we don't officially make referrals, but we can suggest that people at this point, go to a certain national organization and inquire about the members that work with them. So for example, with the animal assisted, therapeutic riding has quite an established network, and we can refer people if they want. I asked, do you want to work with horses, dogs? They tell me that. Or if it's a dog, do they want to be able to access public spaces with the dog, or they just want a companion? So sometimes they simply want a pet. They don't necessarily want to have to worry about those other things. So sometimes simple questions can help. What we're starting to do on our website is that we're creating checklists that people can refer to, what questions to ask a potential provider as well, because people don't always know where to go. And once they do start to search, what they can actually be looking for in terms of who they're going to, what kind of questions that a provider should be able to answer them. And if they don't choose to, then that could be a flag. But at least it gives people some kind of direction in terms of what they could potentially be asking and looking for during their search.
I have one final question. What would we need to put in place so that there's a referral pathway for families to access those services that they so desperately need? We want, of course, people having access to animal assisted activities, education, therapy. What should we put in place for doctors or social worker or anyone else to make that connection?
Well, I think, again, going back to our situation, we actually want to get the directory of services back up and running. When our previous directory of services and programs was very, very large. In fact, we had global organizations wanting to be named in the directory. And so I think that we actually have a campaign right now that we're working on to try and get that phase 1 started, because it will give people the ability to search for organizations that want to be part of this initiative. And, they will still be able to be on there, but they will have to answer a number of questions. It won't just be a link or a logo. So I think that somewhat answers the question. At least people will be able to get enough information before they approach a potential service provider, because right now anybody can hang a shingle on their door, unfortunately.
Thank you for being here tonight, and see you for our next webinar on FASD and sensory issues. Have a good day.